Welcome everyone to the Museum of the Moving Image online. We are very excited about today's program, which we are doing in partnership with BritBox, which for those of you who don't know, is a streaming platform by the BBC and ITV that hosts the biggest collection of British TV content, including, most importantly for today, Red Dwarf. BritBox is generously offering this program to MOMI's members as a benefit in support of the museum and its programming. So we are very lucky to be joined today by three esteemed people essential to the Red Dwarf series. The first is Doug Nalyor, who's a director, writer, and television producer. He is most well known for his work on Red Dwarf that he created in partnership with Rob Grant in 1988. Doug has since written or co-written all 74 episodes of this Emmy award-winning series. He's also served as director for 26 episodes of Red Dwarf and has executive produced 51 episodes of the show. He is the writer and director of what we'll be discussing today, Red Dwarf, The Promised Land, which is the 13th installment in this series. We are also very lucky to be joined by Norman Lovett, who plays Holly, the computer, in Red Dwarf, but is also an incredibly talented stand-up comedian who played the original Comedy Store many times. He supported The Clash, which he says is one of the personal highlights of his career, which I can definitely imagine. He also starred in television and radio, which included his own sitcom, I Love It, on BBC Two, in which he played an eccentric adventurer. He's also appeared in The Young Ones, The Bill, and many other programs. Robert Llewellyn is also joining us, which is great. He began his career on the stage in 1980. He toured the country in a comedy troupe for 5 years, wrote an early Channel 4 sitcom, and then he started playing his role in Red Dwarf in 1988. It's been around for a long time, and we're very excited to discuss it today. More recently, Llewellyn has started to experiment in online video and launched a series called Carpool on Apple TV first, and then on YouTube. And in 2010, he launched The Fully Charged Show, a series about electric vehicles and the future of energy and transport. So please join me in a virtual welcome for these three esteemed guests. Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you.
Doug, for those who don't know, maybe you can briefly tell us a little bit what the plot is of the show, and then we'll take a look at a short clip from The Promised Land, which is the newest installment that shows how that's sort of changing what has been the paradigm for how the show works.
Okay, so basically it's a spaceship 3 million light years from Earth. The crew get killed in a radiation accident, apart from one guy who's in suspended animation, who's Dave Lister. And he was put into suspended animation because he smuggled an unquarantined cat on board, which was safely sealed in the holes and survives. He comes back 3 million years later when the radiation is at a safe background level to discover his bunkmate, Arnold Rimmer, who he loathes, who's neurotic, has been resurrected as a hologram. His cat has evolved into a whole cat species who now regard him as a kind of god, but they've all left the ship apart from one of the cats. And the ship is controlled by a senile computer called Holly, who has an IQ of 6,000 supposedly, but he doesn't. And then they're joined later by a mechanoid who's a kind of robot called Kryten.
All right. So
is anyone still there? Is anyone listening?
Yeah.
What's remarkable is this idea has survived on television for 30 plus years.
30 plus years is extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah.
I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. It'll probably be,
So let's look at the clip, and then we'll come back together and talk about why this show has survived for so long.
Okay.
I'm sure we've been this way before. Oh, sorry. What were they? Some people. What? It's him, the Holy Puppadom.
He has come back, as predicted by the Book of Smeg. I can speak!
A miracle. Guys, get up, get up. Who are you?
I am Brother Soul.
I'm Sister Luna. Sister Peanut. I can speak. I couldn't before, because of you.
What are you doing here?
We are fleeing from the feral cats who seek to kill us for spreading your teachings.
Wait, do you think I'm some kind of god?
We don't think, Holy Poppadom, we know. Ever since I was a child, I've had 3 meals of vindaloo a day, as the sacred writing said we must. Only then will we be rid of the evil inside of us.
You did what? Listen, there's been a massive misunderstanding based on half-truths and misunderstanding. I'm just a man. No one special. A nobody, really. Come on, guys, back me up here.
He's a less than nobody. And absolutely zero.
The key point, of course, I also missed saying was that they are on another spaceship. They're not on Red Dwarf.
In that scene, yes.
Haven't been in a cupboard for the last 30 years, and we've just opened it. This is getting worse and worse.
It is. Yes, just don't dig yourself in a bigger hole, Doug.
I think this is a show that you really have to just watch in order
I would rather I explain what it was, which is a load of guys on a spaceship and these people think this guy's God, but he isn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay.
So for all of you, I mean, maybe Doug, we can start with you, but Robert and Norman, you have been involved with this show, since it began. So I'd like, I'm just curious why you think, what about it has sort of captured the imagination of so many people and has propelled it, into 2020 when you now have a feature-length version.
Doug, you go.
Oh, sorry, is this me?
Yes.
I'm
hoping so.
Doug.
Right, okay. I thought you... Okay. The reason for that, I think, is because whatever network it's been on, I mean, apart from it, I think it's good. And the guys are amazing cast with an amazing chemistry. It's always had a huge cult following, and it's always got record ratings on whatever network it's been on, thankfully for us. And so we've been able to go. We had a little hiatus from 99, I think, till 2010, when we used to be on BBC Two. Then we came back on a different network in the UK, and then we took off all over again. So it's been, I mean, there's no show in the UK certainly that has been like this and has done those kind of things. No one really truly understands why.
Robert and Norman, do you want to, as members of the cast, I'm curious, why you think fans have gravitated towards the show, and also what it's been like to live with these characters.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only reason I've ever been able to understand about why it's lasted so long, because that is a real surprise, is that in a sense it was never fashionable. So if you watch the very first episode, it's not out of date. It's not like dated, because you think, oh God, look what they used to wear back in 1988. So it's in a sense outside trends and fashion. So it's just in its own universe. It doesn't really refer to any other universes. It's in its own reality, and which for a comedy show, it takes very seriously. The reality that Red Dwarf is in is plausible and real, and that's what we exist in when we're on the show. So it's kind of never gone out of fashion, which I think is, I don't think it was an intentional thing on the part of Doug and Rob Grant. That's just the way it kind of panned out. And I think the other thing, because we always say, the cast always say, we do it because of the writing. And indeed, that is a huge attraction for us. But then Doug has really explained that. I kind of understood that in the last few years, that the reason that the writing is how it is now is he hears us. And it is the chemistry between the cast that is, you couldn't create that. That can only grow from experience. And that's why now, when we read a script, it's instantly kind of 90% there, because we just know those characters in our DNA now. We've been doing them so long that I don't have to think, how do I play Kryten? What's my motivation? There's none of that. It's just Kryten. I can't help it. There's nothing I can do. I can't stop him. Once he takes over, I'm doomed,
I think also with Robert, you build up your character, you become Kryten, which...
Is it me or is Norm a bit quiet?
He's a little bit quieter, yeah.
Come closer to the screen.
So far away from this computer.
Oh, not too close, Norm.
Don't you? Why don't you say I'm ugly?
I think it's better that we can hear you in your heads.
Can you hear? Yeah.
Yeah.
You look neat, Doug. You've got a nice, neat little head. You've got a nice, neat little face today. Look, it's lovely.
Okay.
Yeah, you're looking very neat.
I can't say it really
It's very neat. Don't you think? Yeah.
It does look very neat, yeah.
I think with the
You're right,
characters,
it's white.
the main two characters, Craig and Chris, very much, there's a lot of the characterization that they play is them from real life. Can I say that?
And that's why they were cast. That's why they were cast. Because
so I think that's important. And obviously me is, I'm not far away from what I play as well. You know what I mean? I'm a bit weird, you know, so but the main two, I think that's it. And the cat, I mean, is like Kryten in a way. The cat had to, you know, do the dance. Well, he always did the dancing, but he had to bring, you know, get that character, didn't he? From he named, what did Danny name? He named about 6 people he drew from.
Yes.
James Brown, and Richard Pryor, people like that, you know. But the main thing is the great writing and wonderful writing. So some of those early jokes and stuff, you just can't forget them. They're beautiful, and they'll always work. It's timeless. They're pretty timeless. A lot of it is very timeless, and that's important because, like music or anything like that, you have a life, and Red Dwarf has a life.
Yes. So it's been quite a long one. That's
exactly a long life so far. Yeah. It could well go on. I'd love to come back in 100 years' time, if we're all still alive, and see if Red Dwarf's still on and Red Dwarf is still showing. Are there any channels? I'd love to do that. I'd love to see what's going to happen, but because we don't know if we can do that. I think once we die, I think that's about it, really.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, because that is one thing, though, that is, I think I'm now so confused about the real person. So, for example, well, here's an embarrassing thing. Just the other side of the camera that I'm on now is an ironing board. Now, Kryten does like ironing. I hadn't even looked. I hadn't set that up because I'm doing this interview. I've just looked up, and there's an ironing board there with a load of shirts on it because I do all the ironing in my house, and I always have done. And I like doing it. It's very relaxing. But so there are elements of our real lives. Craig will eat curries that honestly, he'd eat a curry.
Perhaps you've become him.
I think it's a bit of that because if I go out with Craig for a curry, his curry can strip the paint off a car. You know, it's dangerous stuff. It's a toxic chemical, and he eats it and he's fine. I just couldn't. I can't even breathe it. It's so hot. Even the smell of Craig's curries makes my eyes water, and I don't even eat it. It's just unbelievable. And Chris does collect stuff, doesn't he? I mean, he's got some interesting bits and bobs in his barn.
That's true.
Got all funny since he's got older, I reckon.
Yeah.
He's the youngest. No, Craig's the youngest.
Craig's the youngest.
Craig was 23 when we started.
I'm the oldest, and Craig, Craig was 23, and I was 41 when we started.
Right.
I never forget that. And I thought, who is this young guy?
Who's this kid? Yes.
He's great, but he was great. I love him. I love him.
So Norm and for Robert, you talked a little bit about this, but yeah, I mean, this show has been going for a long time, and you've been living with these characters for and as these characters, you know, for that long. What has that been like? I mean, do you relate more to them? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it is sort of part of your life, and as you know, I think that the nice thing now. So there was a period when, you know, it felt like it was such a big thing on the TV. So that and I was always slightly protected from it because on the if I walked down the street, very few people would recognize me because I didn't have 3.5 pounds of latex stuck to my head, so they didn't know. But if I was with anyone else in the cast, if I was with Norman or Danny or Chris or Craig, it was unbelievable.
I would say Craig or Chris
Yeah, they get.
Not me.
Oh no, well, I think they do. Yeah. Well, anyway, yes, they get a lot of it. But then I started doing other TV shows. That was a real shock, and I didn't particularly like it. I didn't mind it if you're at an event for Red Dwarf and everybody goes, "Oh, hello," that's what you expect. But walking down the street and someone comes up. So when I was on other TV shows, they all went, "You're that bloke that used to be covered in rubber." And that was difficult, but I've got used to it now. And I'm now just in, the two things I feel about Red Dwarf more than anything else is gratitude that I managed to not annoy Rob and Doug when I first met them, being an absolute idiot. When we first.
It's charming and really funny.
Robert, you're not an idiot.
No, I know, but I mean, it felt like such a, when you look back at your whole life and you think that moment when I walked in this room with these two people, I didn't know who they were, what the show, I didn't know anything. And I just look back and I just go, just be a bit more careful. But I'm so grateful that I've been in this show. I'm very proud of what we've managed to achieve and that we've stuck together. And I think an important aspect of that, because, I know a lot of actors who've fallen out with people that they work with and they make life impossible and miserable. We've had ding-dongs, haven't we, on the set, but never anything serious. And 99% of the time, it's an incredible, positive atmosphere, amazing support for each other always. Everyone always we're a tight-knit group. We really, stand up for each other and appreciate. That's what I love about it. When other people get a big laugh, everyone is happy about that. It's not like, oh, he's got a bigger laugh than me. There's none of that in Red Dwarf.
That's a huge part of the success. Yeah. Everyone's generosity, the cast generosity to one another. There's no line counting or laugh counting.
No.
And that maybe wasn't there initially in the first series or two.
Yeah. Yes.
It was.
There's a bit of stress.
But as it's sort of evolved and people matured,
and that's got better and better, hasn't it, Doug? I mean, it's got more supportive. I remember telling Doug this, but there was this wonderful moment in series 10 where Chris Barrie and I were waiting to go on. So there was a scene taking place with the cat, Danny, and Craig Lister, and we were listening to it carefully because we knew it was funny, and Danny did his line, and it got this huge laugh and a round of applause, and Chris went, "Yes!" like that. He was so thrilled. We weren't on the scene. We weren't in it. But it was because that laugh happened. I always remember that moment. That was so just captured that sort of spirit of the collective experience of it.
He's a generous person. He's a good person, very good person.
Well, since you brought it up, I think that the laugh, the sort of sitcom element of the show that there is, that you hear an audience, or at least a laugh track during it,
it's a live audience.
It is a live audience, yeah.
But they have stuff played into them. So 50% of it is recorded in front of the audience, and 50% of it is played into
pre-recorded. Yeah.
So we played into them. So we had basically and played them each a kind of 45-minute show, or not played, but they saw a 45-minute show. Half of which was pre-recorded and half of which was live and recorded there.
Oh, that's fascinating. That must so is that what you did for the Promised Land as well?
No, that's what we did for the Promised Land. Generally, much easier on a half hour. It's just half hour.
Yeah.
So you pre-record generally 15 minutes. You do 15 minutes live. Everyone goes home. It's easy. We knew how to do that.
Yeah.
And then UK TV said, "Hey, why don't you make a TV movie lasting 90 minutes with the audience?" And then it was like, okay. And there was nowhere to go because no one had done it, certainly not in the UK.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, it seemed at the time before we did it the worst of both worlds. But in fact, it
worked, didn't it? Yeah. And I mean, it is a thing that, in a sense, that's another aspect of the cast, that none of us are in any way classically trained actors. So we haven't come out of none of us went to drama school.
Yeah.
Quite a few of us barely went to school, let alone drama school, and I'm one of them. And so we've come out of a comedy background or a live performing background. So that's the chemistry is lit. The kind of fuse is lit by a live audience. So I do remember we did a camera rehearsal years ago, talking 20 years ago. And some executives from the BBC were disappointed at our unprofessional attitude when we were doing a camera rehearsal, no audience in. We're just doing this to block the cameras and where we're standing. and I can't even remember what was happening, but I'm sure we weren't being terribly focused and professional. And they could not believe the difference then when we came out in front of the audience and did the scenes in front of the audience and hit every mark, hit every line, got every laugh. You know, we're 100% focused. And I think that's a lot to do with that kind of, our backgrounds is to entertain an audience and to, you know, connect with an audience.
As opposed to entertain a camera crew.
Yes. You don't want to entertain a camera crew.
You're actually bored. Yes.
Yeah. It is a tough thing as a performer. It's a very tough thing to do where you're doing your, sir, I'm doing my funny line, and you look, you just catches your eye, and there's a cameraman that go, and looking at his watch.
Because he's heard it 7 times,
because he's seen it so many times already.
So how does that? I am curious about it's you know what you're saying about, you know, all of your background and in stand-up comedy and the fact that there's a live audience. Is that reflected in the writing at all? Like, are there parts of, or the dynamics on set, you know, are there parts that are improvised at all, or I'm just wondering how you all work together, you know?
Well, the script has to have laugh lines and quite often. So you have to have that throughout the piece. Half an hour is much easier to manage. And there is, you know, probably the most famous scene in Promised Land is probably a scene with comedy in it, but it's the pathos in the scene that really hits home. And there are action sequences and adventure sequences as well, but it has to be kind of consistently funny, or that's the idea at least.
Sitcom.
Yeah,
it's a sitcom. It's a sitcom. Yeah. And as for improvisation, there are, and literally we can all count them on the fingers of one hand, the extra bit of a line that we did in rehearsals, and Doug said, yeah, that's good, keep it in. It's very, very rare. So every single line is scripted. It's very much, even if it looks a bit improvised, it's not. It's very tightly scripted, which is fantastic. You know, I mean, but I know I've slipped in, I think, one like 7-word sentence at the end of a scene, and Doug said yes. You go, oh yes, what a result! You know, that's like once every 3 series you might manage to do that. You know.
Sure, that's not.
So Norm, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm not really a regular cast member. I'd never call myself a cast member compared. And you think I've only done half the amount of episodes that they've all done. Bear that in mind as well. So.
Yeah, but Norm, can we just say that when Norman appeared in the most recent episode, I literally went outside, made some vegetable soup with fresh vegetables, cooked it, baked a loaf of bread. They were still clapping, came back in, served the soup to people, sat down, had a nap. They were still clapping. So Norman's a very popular, if not absolutely regular. I mean, they just went bananas when you appeared on the screen, Norm. It was an amazing moment.
Yeah, the love is amazing. When I came back in the series.
Yes, I mean,
I went and spoke to the audience about it because I was really moved emotionally to have all that love, and I just loved it. Perhaps it's because I never had it when I was a baby.
Well, if you need to tell us more about that, Norm, please do.
I can't talk about that now. My mum's, they're gone now, they're gone.
So I have one clip that I think we'll see that I thought was particularly funny that has you and Robert, that I think just shows some of the great back and forth and you know, humor on the show. So let's take a look at that.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Lister won't agree with you, sir.
Don't tell him then. In fact, erase all memory of the distress call from your memory. That's an order.
Yes, sir.
Did you do it?
Did I do what, sir?
Did you erase the SOS distress call from your memory?
We've received an SOS distress call.
Damn, why did I say that? Right. Erase all memory of me asking you to erase all memory of the SOS distress call from your memory. That's another order.
Yes, sir.
Have you?
Have I what, sir?
Have you just done what I asked you to do?
You mean, have I fixed the distortion? Why would I be fixing the distortion? Sir, I think we've received an SOS distress call.
Erase that from your memory, too. That's another order.
Erasing distortion order, sir.
What's the last thing you remember?
You want me to follow you, sir? How did I get here? We were in the corridor.
Yeah, that is good.
That really made me laugh.
That was fun. That was fun to do that one. Yeah.
So I do want to bring up that Robert and Norm, both of you in the show play non-humans, right? You play sort of a humanoid robot and also the supercomputer. And there's definitely a real history in science fiction from HAL in 2001 to, there's a million examples of robots or supercomputers keeping humans company in some way, but sometimes turning against them. And I think the personality of each of you is very distinct, but is also somewhat different, from those sort of stereotypes. So I think maybe first for Doug, but I'd like each of you to chime in too. How did you think about writing these characters? Was there and distinguishing them? And then also, if you, any inspirations that you look to from sort of the history of science fiction?
Well, certainly 2001, in Holly's case, Hal and Hal, that was very much based on that supercomputer that goes mad in the end. And we did a supercomputer that goes senile, at the end of the first show.
That's very funny, yeah.
You always expect these ingenious solutions to problems from the supercomputer, and we thought if he just does stupid stuff and is generally really unhelpful, that will be really funny, and isn't empathetic in a way that you would hope. So that's where that came from. Where Kryten came from, and Rob resisted this for several series. He didn't want to have the stereotype of a robot. Because the whole idea was we don't have aliens on Red Dwarf. Everything is created, originates from Earth. So even the cat people are originated through Lister's pet cat. So we avoided aliens because we thought that will force us to look at character. This is what we thought as we were writing the first show, and it will produce something more interesting than meeting Alien of the Week or Monster of the Week. So that's why so we avoided any kind of robot until season 3. At the end of season 2, and it was just such a good idea to have this extra character in. I persuaded Rob to bring back Kryten for series 3, and that's when Robert joined us, because a different actor, David Ross, played the original Kryten. And that's where they came from. And Kryten, again, rather than being a super robot or a scientific robot, he is a sanitation droid who Lister has worked with him and has broken his programming. So he's taught him how to lie and rebel and be more like him. And as a consequence of that, he's educated himself. So he actually plays the role often of the supercomputer, where he will understand things that the other guys, aren't clever enough to understand.
We do have one clip that I think is a good illustration of, Kryten's sort of personality and how it's evolved. So maybe let's look at that, and then we'll come back.
What are you doing?
I'm following you, sir, as requested, sir.
I don't mean follow me like you're a private eye, you imbecile. I mean accompany me to my destination.
Apologies, sir.
I sometimes wonder if you behave like a cretin on purpose, as a means of thumbing your nose at my authority.
Engaging lie mode engaged. Sir, I assure you, my acting like a cretin is no act. Lie mode cancel.
You're lying.
Engaging lie mode engaged. I most certainly am not, sir. Cancel lie mode.
I can hear you engaging lie mode.
Did I say all that out loud?
Yes.
I knew I needed a service.
Not now, you rusty idiot. I need you. Follow me.
Did I say that out loud?
Say what?
Excellent.
So, so maybe we'll start with you, Robert, but then Norm, because your characters sort of play off of each other also, but yeah. Robert, how did you approach playing Kryten as a robot?
Oh, goodness, it's a long time ago. I mean, I think the key thing was, which we discussed at great length in the rehearsal room, was to not be like existing robots. So, you know, the C-3POs and the R2D, you know, so, you know, obviously my natural voice is English, and, you know, an English butler was sort of poshing. Oh, Mr. Lister, sir, let me, you know, I don't know, whatever. It would just have been so different. And it was so, the original, I think I tried doing it in Swedish, which would have been really bad, a bit like the Swedish chef in the Muppets. It would have been, you know, I don't think, that would have worn thin very quickly. And then I'd been in the USA and Canada, in fact, for some time, just before I started Red Dwarf. And so in my mind, Kryten's voice was a Canadian from Vancouver. And I have been back to Vancouver since, where I was very clearly assured that it was nothing like a Vancouver accent. It was, but it was so. But some Americans have said that. So there's a comedy character, a very funny comedian in the UK called Harry Enfield, and he used to do a comedy character called Tim Nice but Dim. So it was a very upper class British character who was incredibly stupid, which is not unlike quite a lot of people in the very upper classes. So he sort of spoke like that and went, oh, really, really amazing. Hello, my name's Tim Nice but Dim. And that was his sort of character. And every British person gets that straight away. Well, some Americans told me that I was the equivalent, that Kryten's voice was the equivalent of a sort of posh American who's trying to be a bit British, who's sort of mid-Atlantic, and, you know, and reads a lot of novels and books and lives in a beautiful old house in Boston. And it's that, I don't know anything about that. So wasn't me doing that. That was them projecting it. But that was the idea. Once that started and it became very natural, it wasn't an effort to keep that up. But it was really the thing that comes through for me is his utter adoration and love of Lister. That is his, you know, his ultimate ambition is to be more like Lister. And that kind of motivates so much of what he does. Yes. And he's jealous of Lister, and if Lister has any affection for anyone else, Kryten gets upset, he gets moody and sulky. So he's basically in love with Lister, I think, is the way I've always interpreted it.
And I think a key is, and it tells you how far he's come, is that he learned to be pompous. And I love him when he's pompous.
Yeah.
And he sort of looks down on them.
Yes.
You know,
these meager humans, yeah.
Yes, yes.
But it is. I think it's also lovely that he's never been, and he's not a robot that could turn on his human masters, and you know, that sort of cliche of the, you know, in a way like Blade Runner, all those kind of those ideas. And I mean, the immense fun that we've had over the years with things like spare heads. He's got a whole load of spare heads and groinal attachments. That was fairly risque. And I still, to this day, people will shout out on the street, show us your groinal attachment. And you just go, God.
He has a groinal attachment which he plugs in a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, yes, it's for domestic duties. It's not rude.
Yeah.
So Norm, how do you think about playing Holly, you know, in the context of maybe other supercomputers, such as HAL, as Doug brought up?
I didn't know, I'm not really a sci-fi fan. I said that at a convention once, and they sort of booed in a nice way, you know. But just being honest, I'm a very honest person, and I didn't know much about the HAL thing. Well, I do now, obviously, so yeah, I've forgotten how his voice was. I mean, he was very good, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was brilliant voice. He was an American accent.
Yeah. Very calm, slightly
very robotic.
Yeah.
But he's just this red light.
Just a red light. Brilliant idea.
And that's why originally we just had you as a voiceover, and you quite rightly pointed out it's a complete waste.
Yeah, with comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, that face on screen somewhere.
Money for it though.
Yeah.
Oh, I did actually. Yeah, my fee went up for when I did the voice stopped. I remember now. Yeah, I did have got more money once I was visual. Instead of what they get away with. You know.
Yeah, you should have stuck with a red light, Doug. It would have been so much easier.
Yeah, red light. That just a bit
of throbbing. Just need a throbbing red light.
I guess I have to also put my hand up to the fact that I said it's also ego. because I'd done the TV stuff, and you just see him on TV and doing a voice.
Comedy decision.
That was that as well. So, but to do it was, I mean, I just did it. That's how I was in my stand-up, slow, plodded along, bitchy. Yeah. So that was it. That's what went into to him. There's a lot of me there, and the boys, the
old men.
Yeah, they saw that. I think
we were boys once.
I think they saw my stand-up in the early days. And,
yeah, I did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
You were recommended by Mike Craig.
Sorry?
You were recommended by Mike Craig, who saw you in Edinburgh.
Mike Craig, yeah, that rings.
The radio
producer. Yeah. Yes. Oh goodness.
You've got to see this guy. He's amazing. He's so slow. It takes him ages to say anything, but he's brilliant. Oh, really?
Yeah, I got away with murder. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do without having a rule book. I've never followed the rule book to anything I've done, so that's it. That's the reason why I haven't been truly successful.
So when you start stand-up, Norm, how old were you when you started stand-up?
32.
Oh, were you? Right, okay.
Yeah, I started very late, really.
Right.
And because it was punk was around then, and I supported punk bands, quite a few bands, and then the Clash back was terrific because I went down really well with the audience. It was in Derby, the assembly rooms in Derby, and that was fantastic. And John Cooper Clarke was around. I was watching. I loved him. He was great. What was good about John Cooper Clarke is that when he did his poetry is fantastic. Have you heard of John Cooper Clarke? Anybody there?
No, probably not. He's probably not. He's an amazing poet, performance poet, extraordinary man.
And he'd do his poem, and then he'd always do a gag in between the poems, and the gags were great, really old-fashioned gags, but they were great because of that voice. He had such a voice; it was lovely.
He's the poetry equivalent of Keith Richards. It's just unimaginably miraculous that he's still alive. You cannot believe this guy can still stand up, and he's a genius performer.
He
really
was
amazing.
very ill, wasn't he? He nearly
really broad Mancunian.
Keith Richards is still going. Good, long may. Just shows you, drugs don't kill everything. I think Keith Richards will always be alive. I think he will.
I think so. He's completely pickled.
That's actually a brilliant science fiction idea.
It is.
All the drugs he's taking.
In fact, the thing is, all the pictures of Keith Richards as a child, they're fake. He's been alive for the last 1,000 years.
Yes.
He was at the Battle of Hastings. He was at the. He was actually, if you look at the paintings carefully, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, it's Keith at the back.
Last Supper, he's the one on the end.
Keith Richards is a very funny man, isn't he?
He's very funny, very funny. Yeah.
He's really funny, very funny. Wonderful.
Sorry, we've gone right off the topic of Red Dwarf, which tends to happen when we're all together.
I think you can see why you've all wanted to continue on the show for so long. But I think to sort of finish on the new iteration on the Promised Land, I'm curious for all of you. This is a longer format than I think you've done with the show before. Was there anything in particular that you were excited to explore in that sort of extended format, or things that it allowed you to do either with the plot or with the characters?
Well, it obviously needed a more complex story.
Yeah.
And the story basically is how both Lister and Rimmer become gods in different ways, and how it affects them and others. So Rimmer becomes a kind of superpower, gets a superpower, and Lister is seen as the god of the cat people, and it drives both of them to the brink of well, not insanity, but just a really difficult situation, and that's how they cope with it.
And then for you guys as actors, what was it like, sort of being part of this show that you've been a part of for so long, but in a much more extended way?
More of an isolated case of being a computer. And I've always done this. Doug knows. I've always did I want more to do. I want more lines. You know, just I want more. But it's difficult. My one is very isolated, but it's very much like me. I'm very much like that. I mean, I've had children. I've been married and stuff. But I live on my own now. But I've always been a bit of a loner, really. In a way, it sounds weird, doesn't it? You go on and talk to people, and they're all there. But I've always been a lot of a loner, you know. So I suppose, yeah, it suits me. It suits me what I do in there. But yeah, I want more lines. Yeah, funny lines.
I generally want less lines because they're so difficult to learn.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
It was very reassuring in the past when we've had what I classify as proper actors on the show as guest performers, some really well-known, and they have struggled with the lines and that's one of the beauties of the writing. It took me years to work this out. That if it's hard to learn, that actually means it's well written because there's no cliches, there's no common phrases. It's all fresh language, and so you've got nothing to hook onto. You know, I've done other shows where I've had to learn lines, and I'm going, "This is so easy to learn," because it's. But anyway, the coming back to do it was. When we had the audience in, I mean, I just love it when it's terrifying, but it's brilliant when the audience is in, and we get amazing audiences. I mean, they're big crowds, and they're just so enthusiastic and so up for it.
What would happen if you did a film without an audience?
Yeah. Well, we did season 7 effectively was without an audience, wasn't it? I mean,
it was then played into an audience. Yeah. It was the first time we did it, and it had difficulties because because it was played into the audience, it had to be opened up because gaps weren't left, and then you've got music and you've got all these sounds all fighting one another. It wasn't a great idea. Yeah. Ed, who was directed that series, wanted to do it because it looked like we were going to be making a proper film at that point. We wanted to use it as a kind of rehearsal.
I've still got the script of that. Yeah, I've still got the script.
Have you?
Yeah, it wasn't the highlight series, the one we did without an audience. Definitely, I think it's and I think there's brilliant episodes in that. I mean, absolutely magnificently extraordinary episodes in that series, but it wasn't the best one. But the way we raise our game. It was a thing my wife said. So my wife's been in one episode of Red Dwarf, but she's Australian, and she just said, "You lot are so lazy," meaning the whole cast. But it's amazing, and she doesn't flatter people easily. Craig is terrified. I don't know why he's terrified of Judy. He's very scared of her. But she said this to all of us. She said, "Oh, you're so bloody lazy, you lot." But I've got to admit, when you come out in front of the crowd, you really raise your game. Which is like for Judy to say that. This was in the early 90s. That is an amazing that's the most flattering thing she's ever said to me, ever.
Australians are very honest.
They're very down to earth. And,
I like honesty. I like it.
So how many takes, because you do it in front of a live audience, does that mean that you're doing a lot of first takes, or how many takes do you do?
Yeah, we don't do many more than 3 generally. Yeah. So you've kind of got to nail it. Especially, and you've got to protect the gag as well. So they all are so experienced doing this, but if they know they've stumbled before the laugh line,
before the big laugh, we stop them.
To protect it.
Because that is the other thing is because you remember. So there was a freak episode, I think in series 9 or 10, where it was the first scene. We were all really nervous. The first scene that we were recording in front of the audience, and we did it in one take. Well, which was amazing. But that, you've got to remember, that isn't just us. That is the camera crew, the sound people, the guy with the boom. He didn't knock it on the bit of set. The camera didn't go out of focus. The cuts were right. That doesn't happen often, does it, Doug? I mean, quite a long scene with all of us in it going in and out, and lots of different gags and laughs. And we got it in one go. And we just thought, that's it. We're going to be brilliant from now on. Next scene, I think we did about 9 times. Everything went wrong. The camera's out there, So that happens. Yes, it doesn't. It's very fatal to have too much confidence. Because there's so many. I mean, it is the thing with Red Dwarf. There's so many things that can go wrong when we're shooting. It's not, if we had a front door with a bell and a sofa and a kitchen set and some steps to come down when you come in the living room.
Also, Red Dwarf really should be shot without an audience. If we're just talking about what would be the easiest way to shoot it.
Oh God, yeah, it'd be much easier. Yeah,
it'd be much easier because we've got vis effects, we've got explosions, we've got all sorts of
complicated costumes and makeup,
complicated costumes, all that. action blow, and do that with an audience. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But it's what it is, you know.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and we can't change it now.
I mean, it seems like the audience is. I can hear that. That's, you know, maybe not optimal for production, but at the same time, it seems like it gives you so much as performance.
Yeah. I mean, it was strange. I did an interview yesterday with, and the interviewer was saying she was a huge fan when she was in her early teens, and then she loved it when she was at university, and now she's 35 and she's interviewing me. And, you know, love Promised Land. And it's so weird. It's been with me practically my whole life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have grown up with it. So just to end, I'm curious, you know, what any of you look forward to for the future of the show, whether it's more episodes or more fans or different audiences, or what do you imagine?
I'd like to do more 90-minute specials. I mean, everyone seems to want them. The broadcaster wants them. The guys seem to want them. I want them. So hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get going on those soon.
Yeah. No, and from our point of view, it's an easier commitment if we're doing other stuff. If we do like we did a couple of years ago, 2 series back to back, that is like, well, I don't know how many months. It was like 4 months solid. You know, that's quite a big thing to adjust the rest of your life around. But whereas doing a 90-minute special is very doable for all of us. Yeah, no, I'd love to do it. Yeah, so we're fingers crossed that, you know, for it. In the multiple reasons as to why you might not be able to do that, which we all know the list is getting long, but hopefully we can tick some of them off and actually get around to it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, fingers crossed.
Right.
That's good. That's good. I like that.
Thank you guys so much. I think this was a fantastic introduction to the show. For anyone who doesn't know it, definitely check it out. And for those who are lifelong fans, as the case may be, this is, you know, a fantastic new installment. So thank you, Robert Llewellyn, Norman Lovett, and Doug Nalyor for joining us.